Hello everyone, I'm Rob Chiroli and welcome to this Wisdom of Hindsight business webinar by Two Wise Heads. It's a collaboration between me and Paul Thewlis. If you're thinking about building a new website, then this webinar is for you. Maybe you're a startup and don't have a site, or you have one already and it looks pretty terrible. Perhaps you still have those bruises from building one last time and you're thinking, maybe I should do it differently this time. Well, today I'm going to be interviewing Paul about your website to build yourself or not to build yourself. So welcome, Paul.
Hi Rob. Yes, today's webinar is not so much about technology as it is about decision making and making the right choice for your circumstances. Perhaps technology isn't your thing and you feel vulnerable trying to decide what to do. Perhaps it is your thing and you're thinking you could save a whole lot of money by doing it yourself. Either way, I expect you'll get something valuable today.
Excellent. Yes, I'm looking forward to that, Paul. But before we do, we should cover off some basic housekeeping. We do want these webinars to be interactive, so we'd love you to send a question through at any time. And you can, or you can wait for the end of the session at the Q&A at the end. To do that, all you need to do, you'll see a box on the top right-hand side of the screen like this one. You just type in your question and we'll address it during the webinar, or Paul will follow up with you later. I'll remind you that a replay of the webinar will be sent to you after the conclusion, along with Paul's slides presentation. So don't try and get down all the details, just jot down any jewels of information or any immediate actions that you find important. Okay, Paul, so let's go straight to dealing with the elephant in the room. You're actually an internet marketing consultant, so you're just going to spend the next 40 minutes giving us all the reasons why our audience shouldn't do a website themselves and instead come and pay you money to do it for them, right?
That's a fair enough expectation from our audience, and yes, I hope that some people in the audience will approach me to work with them, but there are businesses where, for reasons such as availability of expertise, time or cash flow, there's a good and legitimate reason to do a website in whole or in part themselves. Good business for me revolves around creating the right partnerships with the right clients so that the outcome is a win for both of us. But more to the point, almost every business needs a website these days, and today I want to give some good insights into making the right choices right up front when deciding what to do with your website.
Okay, so that sounds fair enough. So who should or shouldn't be building a website themselves then?
So broadly speaking, there are 5 approaches you might take to who builds your website. You could do it yourself. Use a friend or family member. You might have an in-house employee or a team. You might use an individual consultant or use a digital agency. However, you could choose a combination of these because there are many steps in building a website. So you might choose to have some parts of it done by a consultant and others you or your staff would do.
Okay, so how do we work out which parts are done by whom then?
Well, what I'm going to do is to go through a high-level description of the process of building a website.
Cool. So where do we start then, Paul?
Well, Rob, as a business coach, you'll appreciate this. It starts with your business objectives. Who is your target market, and what do you want to sell to them? As an internet marketer, we'd say we're starting with the question, who is our audience? Our audience most commonly is going to be people who are prospective clients or customers. But it could be also existing clients, or it could be potential referral partners or distributors of your product. So you might in fact have more than one type of audience. What we need to do then is determine what type of outcome we want from our audience or audiences. Here are 6 possible audiences and an example outcome we might want from each one. So, a new customer. You might want to buy a product on your e-commerce shop. An existing customer, you might want them to make an appointment for, say, a regular checkup. You might be targeting potential referral partners like, say, an accounting firm. So your outcome might be to get new partners to sign up to a referral agreement. And existing partners, you want them to keep giving you referrals. You might have another company who distributes your product, like say a retail store. You want to have new distributors signing up for your product, and you want existing distributors to keep sending in those orders. In Web Analytics, we'll call these macro outcomes or macro goals.
Okay, so I assume then that there must be some micro outcomes as well. What are they?
Rob, usually it's a bit much to expect someone to come straight to your website and buy on their first visit. But there might be some small steps they take along the way to our macro outcome that we know indicate that we're winning them over. These are micro outcomes.
Okay, and you've got some examples here.
Yes, let's quickly run through those. For our e-commerce store, we might be encouraging new customers to download, or potential new customers, to download some sort of guide or ebook, or perhaps leave their contact details in doing that. We might have launched a new product, and getting an inquiry from an existing customer is a micro outcome. Also, subscribing to a newsletter, reading a blog, watching a video, or perhaps booking into a distributor conference might be micro outcomes we want our site to achieve.
Okay, that makes good logic sense. So how do we get our audience to the macro or micro outcomes that we want?
Okay, so let's put a connection between these two. First, we have to think about how our audience is going to arrive at our website. This can be by various channels, and they could arrive onto different pages of our website, not just the home page. At this point, we also need to think about our site integrating with other systems. In our past webinars on the engineering of an internet marketing machine, we talk about this in terms of internet marketing systems integration. But the other key integration we need to consider is business systems integration. Many businesses are using business systems designed for their industry. For example, we've recently completed a site for a business using software specifically designed for their industry to record patient information and appointments. The capability of the system to integrate or not with the website impacted on how we designed and built the website. More specifically, and the inability of the software to integrate with an online booking system changed the way we were able to take appointments online.
Okay, so you said that our audience can land on different pages. Why is that, and how can that be controlled?
The easy way to control how people get to the website is using links from emails, social media, paid ads such as Google AdWords or Facebook marketing, or articles or blog posts we place on other websites. Of course, we have no control over links other people put on their websites back to our site, other than creating great content to attract people to link those specific pages. The source which is most complex to control is organic search results, primarily from Google search, as they dominate the market. This is the channel that gets most attention in our website development, and it's the concern of SEO, search engine optimization. SEO has two main components, on-site SEO and off-site SEO. So what we're going to do now is go through a website development process, starting with an on-site SEO analysis and going through to launch.
Okay, so we've got the audience at the top of this process diagram like we had on the previous one.
Yes, so we take the audience, or multiple audiences, that we identified earlier, and we work up a list of keywords that we might use when searching, they might use when searching for whatever we're offering. We then prioritize which terms we want to target based upon their relevance to what we're offering. Also, we need to consider the amount of search traffic using that term and the level of competition for that traffic as well. There are various tools to do this analysis, such as the Google AdWords Keyword Planner and other subscription services that we use.
Okay, so when we have shortlisted our keywords, you then move on to site structure.
Yes, you decide on how you're going to break your website into pages that match up to those keywords. You'll also match pages to other audience sources as well. For example, if you're doing an AdWords paid advertising, you decide which pages on your site will be used for landing pages for your pay-per-click throughs. So you now have to match your audience sources to your specific landing pages. Then you need to work on the flow of your audience from the landing page through to the micro and the macro outcomes. Dropping out of this will be your page structure and your site navigation wireframe design. We turn then to the content of the site. This is the text, images and videos that we will be showing to our audience, but also this will have a major impact on our Google ranking. There are some do's and don'ts here that you need to follow to get the best results for that ranking.
So far we haven't built anything, Paul. We haven't needed any programming expertise, for example.
Yes, you're right. You're right, Rob. Going back to our sort of DIY theme, you could say that if you've got good analytical skills and good writing skills, then you could get yourself to this point. Where your external consulting assistance comes in is when you don't have these skills in-house. For example, writing copy or just analysing the keywords sort of things. But perhaps more importantly, an external consultant can bring the prior experience to help you avoid the novice mistakes and, of course, save you some time, because doing something the first time can take you much more time and effort than when you have the specialist experience. Also, as I'm sure you'll agree, Rob, having an external collaborator can bring additional insights, because as a business owner or manager, we're often too head down in our business to see some of the wider perspectives.
Yeah, that's often very true, Paul, and external insights and accountability do help. So now we have the content and structure, so it's onto the design stage now?
Yes, and this is often where people mistakenly start their website project, which leaves them in danger of missing out on all of the good strategic thinking that we've already done in our process so far. Now, there are a number of approaches to design. You can have a graphic designer design your site. This can be great for getting an interesting looking site which has good use of space and design features. It's also a good way of keeping your site matching your brand styling. If you don't have a company style, then really you should establish a corporate style guide, and designers are good for doing this work, and you need to keep your website consistent with your corporate style guide. However, designers are used to designing for static printed pages. Your website must adjust its design to fit all devices and browsers. It's really important that your designer either works with the person actually building the site so that the design is flexible to respond to different devices, or that your designer has the experience with responsive design websites. Of course, you can also have someone who does both the design and the build of the website in the one person.
And what about using pre-designed templates, Paul?
Yeah, pre-designed template can be a good way to go, especially if you're building the website yourself. There are thousands of templates available in template libraries like ThemeForest. These are available for very modest prices and in some cases for free, but you need to be sure that your template is going to match your site structure and content. We don't use templates from these libraries for our client work because coding has been done by someone else, a third party, and if our clients want a variation from the third-party template, then it can be difficult for us to make modifications. But if you're doing the site yourself and you're prepared to accept that you have to work within the constraints of the template, then that's okay. But even with a template, I find the 80-20 rule applies.
Now, the Pareto principle, how does it apply here, Paul?
Well, I find that you can get 80% of the look of the site with about 20% of the effort. But the other 20% of the look and the operation of the site takes about 80% of the effort.
Okay, so we seem to have moved into the technology and coding part of the process now.
Yes. Now, this is an area where the business owner or manager can feel they're starting to drown a bit. Often you'll get people advocating one programming platform or another based upon the technical capabilities. My advice here from a business decision point of view is to go with the market, unless there is a compelling business case, that's a business case, to do otherwise. In this case, using WordPress to build your website is where the vast majority of web development market is located. This pie chart that we're showing shows across the entire internet marketplace, WordPress has nearly 50% market share of the content management systems used to build a website. Now, you might say yes, but there's lots of small irrelevant websites which might skew the data. And that's probably true, but when you look at the top 10,000 websites, the picture is very much the same as far as WordPress is concerned. You get nearly 50% of the marketplace is WordPress, and the characteristics of the other competitors changes a little bit, but WordPress holds the market pretty strongly there. The business case for WordPress is that it has more people skilled to use it in the market. Therefore, there's more choice of in-house or external people to work on your site. There's also much larger libraries of add-on programs called plugins, which can quickly or more cheaply enhance your website in very many ways without having to start the whole thing from scratch. Beyond that is the ease of use of WordPress, which has been a key factor in its market position. So there are lots of WordPress users out there, and this is where your brother, sister, son, daughter, cousin, friend of a friend comes in and offers to build you a site for sort of little or nothing.
Okay, so that's great. Free is good, but I'm sensing there's a but coming.
Well, technically they may be able, maybe very able, but there are some business issues that need to be answered first, and we'll come back to this when we've finished the run through the development process.
Okay, so we're a long way through the process with analysis, design and technology accounted for, and so we now have a website built. Where do we go from here?
Once we have our website constructed, it needs to be thoroughly tested on various devices, including iPhones, Androids and tablets in both portrait and landscape orientation, and of course desktop computers with various screen sizes. It also has to be tested on major browsers, Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, Firefox and Opera. Testing needs to include checks that all the links are working, the layout works on various window sizes, forms and other interactivity operate properly, and logins and integration with other systems are working. This can be, to be honest, a tedious and time-consuming process, especially if something isn't working properly, and it can take hours of work trying to identify the problem. If you can't fix the problems, it can be really impractical to get someone to come in and fix up the site that's not working.
Okay, so we're all tested and okay. Are we done with that?
Well, almost. You most likely have, if you've developed the website, you've done it on a development server somewhere. So we're going to need to then upload the site from the development server onto the hosting service that we'll be using. Once you've got this done, you've still got a few tasks, including a final test to ensure that nothing has changed in the upload, installing software to redirect old page addresses to our new page addresses, if there are any, installing security and backup software, and installing analytics so we can measure if our audience is getting to our site, how they're getting there, what they do on the site, and of course how all this affects the achievement of our micro and macro outcomes or goals. And finally, we need to make up a sitemap, set up a Google Webmaster account and submit that sitemap to Google so it's properly indexed with Google.
Okay, so we've covered a lot there about what's required to build a site. Before we wind up, can you just return to our original question, to build yourself or not build yourself, and help us through the business decisions involved?
Excuse me. When you're making a decision about taking on a project, you really need to understand the extent of the work required, and that's why we've gone through this process. Of course, you can take some shortcuts, but that's going to really diminish the success of the project. As you can see, there are many components to the project requiring different skills. What you might find is that you can get the job done collaboratively between you, your staff, and external consultants.
Okay, so what should business owners or managers think about when considering doing a site themselves?
Okay, for some this will be clear. It's a clear out of the question decision because you don't have the know-how and the time to do it. Others may have the technical know-how or the ability to acquire that technical know-how. Then if the time available to spend on learning and building the site is more plentiful than the cash to pay someone else, then it's probably a good or maybe the only option. As we've said, most of the tools you'll need are either free or cheap, so it's a viable low-cost option. For those where funds are available to get someone else to do the work, spending time on building a site yourself is time away from your core business. And it's likely that the site will take longer to build because you've got lots of other things to do. Think carefully how this fits into your business plan, because saving on costs might delay revenue because the website building is sucking your time away from business sales, for example.
Okay, so next there is the family or friend option.
Yeah, if you have someone with the appropriate skills and the right price, which may be a zero, then this is a clear option worth considering. But there's a big range in skills between someone who can build a basic website, or perhaps who's built a website to suit themselves, and someone who can build a truly professional site to compete with high-quality competitors. If you have access to someone with that right level of skill, well, then that's great. But it comes down to managing risk and managing the relationship you have with the person concerned. Something you get done as a favour might mean you lose control of the quality or the deadlines. Conversely, if you're a bit hard-nosed about getting projects done, then you might end up with some personal relationship problems that you could well do without.
Yep.
Also, a website is not a build and forget project. You'll need to keep it maintained and updated. Make sure you have a commitment from the person doing the site, building the site in the first place, that they're around to do that ongoing work, because they're the only ones that really know how it was built.
Yep. And so what about employing someone to do the work in-house?
In-house staff can certainly be important collaborators or contributors, at least in part of the project. Their day-to-day participation in the business can bring valuable insight. It's a good chance, of course, that their hourly rate will be lower than a consultant. But of course, you need to be able to find a person with the right skills who will work for you on a sort of permanent employment basis. And remember, if they leave the business, then they take their knowledge of how to manage your website and how it was built, perhaps, they take that with them. Having a dedicated staff member or team to deliver the whole project may be beyond many small businesses. Although this is the approach I took with a previous business I own, and it ended up evolving into my consulting firm, Web Intelligence. It might be more realistic, though, to employ someone in-house who can participate in parts of the website development and then manage the ongoing internet marketing for the business, such as blogs, email marketing, offsite SEO, and social media. Perhaps with some external mentoring from an external consultant.
Okay, so if we're using an external consultant for the project, what do we look for there?
Cash flow is always, a paramount concern for small business. I've heard many pitches as a business owner from consultants offering us guaranteed costs for a non-guaranteed outcome. So I can appreciate the reluctance of some business owners to invest in an area that they have little understanding of. However, I certainly favour the use of external consultants at the very least in an advisory role. Having someone with industry experience to structure the overall project and provide experience and insights at key stages is really important. A collaborative team of independent consultants is becoming a common approach where someone in-house or external manages the project and brings various experts into the project as required. This can be a really great way of getting a highly experienced group of people to work on your website.
But what if we simply want someone to do it all for us from go to woe?
Okay, so digital agencies are an option that can provide a one-stop shop for your project, where they have access to dedicated specialists for each of the various components of the project. If your website needs some more complex features and integration, perhaps they will have people with very specialised skills on hand to do that. A good agency will have well-developed project management procedures and plenty of experience with your type of project. On the other hand, there is a risk that they take a cookie-cutter approach to your site and be more focused on fitting your site to the way they do things than addressing your specific needs. You also have to be sure that you're not paying CBD consulting rates only to find that a junior staff member is working on your site. A brand name digital agency might be attractive to middle-level managers in a medium to large organisations as a means of covering themselves. Well, I use such and such, so it's not my fault that we have issues, sort of thing. In the end, you need to match your business against the agency to see if you're an important enough client to have enough power in the relationship to get what you want.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for that, Paul. So we'll open up to questions, and I've got a few coming through. Got one here from David who says that you've talked about planning pages for audiences coming through Google search. What about people coming through social media?
Okay, so with social media, you have some control in terms of if you're doing posts on social media, you can link back to particular pages. So typically you would do blog pages on your website. You do a post on your social media page and hook back into those blogs. What you have to do, though, just putting a post on social media isn't necessarily talking to your audience. So what you need to do is some prior analysis of who is out there on social media who is in your audience. So if you know who your audience is, you go out and reach out to people who are already talking to that audience. and try and get them to be friends or followers of your social media page, and then work through that way. So you've got a sort of two-way exercise with your social media, linking to your website, but also reaching out to your audience.
Okay, cool. That sounds well reasonable. Another question from Anne, who would like you to elaborate on some of the do's and don'ts of content writing for SEO.
Okay. This has sort of changed over a period of time. What happens there is that you need to decide on which keywords that you're trying to target in on that particular page. If you need to have a certain amount of the keywords in your content, but not too much. You need to have those keywords in areas like headings and that sort of thing. You need a reasonable amount of content that makes Google think that it's a valuable piece of content, but it can't be overstuffed with keywords because they'll penalise you for that, because it won't look genuine. And of course, you have to do genuine writing that is easy for people to use, to read. So you have to think about it from your customers or potential customers' point of view, and not make it overly technical or overly complicated in the way that you write it. You also have to do some things like alt tags and things on your images and that sort of thing to help boost your SEO position.
Yeah, so Google can see them and so on. Yep.
Yep.
All right. So look, on a related question, Helen's asked, how easy is it to do the part where you choose the keywords? So how does she find the keyword planner, for example?
Okay. So there is the keyword planner that I mentioned earlier on. The Google one is part of the Google AdWords platform. So if you sign up for Google AdWords, you can actually go and make up a campaign, an AdWords campaign yourself, and the keyword planner is part of the AdWords system where you can do that analysis. There's no cost to actually joining up with AdWords. The cost is in click-throughs. So you're able to do some prior research before actually spending any money with actual advertising. But the keyword planner gives some good basis to work for.
Okay, cool. And Lisa has asked that you mentioned a wireframe design and wants to know what that actually is.
Okay, so that's really sort of your navigation, your pages and your navigation. So what you're trying to do is not worry too much about what's actually on the page, but how you're going to travel through the site. And you need to sort of work out a site structure that's going to have some logic to it. So you might have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels deep in your website, and you need to think through how that's going to, how you're going to work your way through that. So you might actually plan out a few pages in terms of just blocking out sections of your page, and you might have some sidebars or some, various sections where you want to put links and buttons and things like that. So you sort of really, it's a black and white sort of schematic of how you're going to go. Some pages blocked out just in terms of sections, and then some connection, flow diagram connection between various pages. So you've got a really clear picture of how the user, the visitor to your site, is going to flow from one page to the next. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that all makes sense. And Mark would like to know, how do you know which audience people come from for either the macro or the micro outcomes?
Okay, so this is where you've got to set up your digital, your Google Analytics, not the only analytics system available, but it's the most commonly used one. So what you can do is you can set up goals in that in the analytics, so that when someone performs an action that is the goal that you want, and that might be filling out a form, it might be making a purchase, or whatever it is, you indicate on your website, yep, well that's a goal that we were a macro or micro goal that we wanted them to achieve. Then what happens is that you're able to then use the other information about the location they've come from, like in terms of the geographic location, what country they're from or what city they're from, but also, whether they've come through social media or whether they've come direct, that sort of thing. You can have all of those parameters that you can work with. This is the first time they've been, or how many times they've been to the site before before they've actually achieved that goal. So we've got all of that information that we can cut and slice that round and do the analysis that we really want to look at, and we can also do some flow diagram work in the analytics system there. You just need to set that up at the beginning with those macro goals and micro goals there. You can't sort of go back and do that. In a sense, you've got to set that up at the beginning and work forward from there.
Okay, cool. And then final question from Diane, Paul, who wants to know more about your business,
Sure.
Web Intelligence, and
Yep.
whether you're actually an external consultant of a digital agency or not.
Yeah, we're probably a little bit of a blend between the two. We do projects where we sort of more or less do 100% of the work and develop a site for a client, but we also work collaboratively with other companies. So that can be certainly the client. The client can take on chunks of the project, and we can do other bits of it. But we work with other web design developers and graphic designers and the like, and maybe social media consultants in a sort of collaborative team. So we're probably a perhaps more on the consulting side, but with either the skills in-house or through our collaborative networks to be able to sort of deliver a one-stop shop type of solution.
Cool. All right, that's all the time we've got for today for questions. So just a couple of reminders. Firstly, that the replay and the slides of this webinar will be available on our website from this afternoon, and we'll email you the link tomorrow. And also to register for our next webinar in 2 weeks' time on how to understand and communicate with everyone you meet. We're all unique, and each of us has our own way of doing things and behaving in different situations. By appreciating these differences and learning how to identify them in those you meet, you can actually improve your communication and be more effective in actually influencing them. In this webinar, I will take you through the 4 main energy types and how to use them to understand and communicate with everyone you meet. So Paul, thanks for that, and if people want further help from you about building a website and internet marketing systems, how can they contact you?
Rob, our contact details are on the Two Wise Heads website, twowiseheads.com.au, and you'll see on the slide my email and Rob's also.
Okay, so thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again in 2 weeks at the same time. Until then, may all your business decisions be wise ones. Goodbye, everyone.